Hey guys, today we've got a story from the BestofRedditorUpdates subreddit, where OP's sister hooks up with her fiancé, but she's the real victim. My 26 female, fiancé 28 male, slept with my sister, 32 female, heartbroken and devastated, I can't move on, posted by broken-hearted sister. My fiancé, let's call him Jake, and I have been together for 7 years. I don't know a life without him. I met him at university and we stayed together past graduation. We bought a flat together 2 years ago. He proposed last summer and was set to wed in July. We've had very few problems, until now. My sister, let's call her Sarah, is an extremely volatile person. Growing up, I doted on her completely, but she had a lot of personal issues that made our home life turbulent. Her childhood was very different to mine. My parents had very little money and they were on the brink of a divorce, and my dad was physically violent on a number of occasions. Whilst things did improve drastically in the years after I was born, she has an abundance of problems that stem back to this. My parents feel a lot of guilt about Sarah's upbringing and used to let her get away with some shocking behaviour. Sarah had the same boyfriend for as long as I can remember. They dated from when they were 16, and their relationship was toxic. They habitually broke up and got back together. When they were good, they were crazy in love. But more often than not, she would have these insane, sometimes physical arguments with him, then take out her frustrations and despair on myself and my parents. I spent so many nights lying by her side in bed while she cried so hard that she would retch. After their arguments, she would throw plates and glasses at the wall, hit herself. Sometimes she'd hit me and my parents too. It was like he was a drug to her, and she was emotionally stunted and didn't know how to see anything past their relationship. 2 months ago, her boyfriend called things off for good. I don't know what gave, but after nearly 2 decades together, he'd finally had enough. He booked a one-way ticket to another country, changed his number, deleted all social media profiles, and essentially disappeared from Sarah's life. To this day, she still won't explain what caused this, but it was long overdue. To say that Sarah was devastated is an understatement. She moved out of their shared rented apartment and in with my parents. I'd visit her most days after work, where she'd flip between explosive rage to an almost catatonic silence, staring at the wall with tears streaming down her face. At one point, we were all extremely worried that she might seriously harm herself and organised for her to see a therapist, something that I'd suggested for years. Of course, she backed out days before her appointment and there were no consequences. She is, after all, a grown woman. She just hasn't changed emotionally the entire time I've known her and still acts like a teenager. 2 days ago, I went to visit Sarah, who was in bed in her darkened room. I let myself in and attempted to speak with her, telling her all about my day at work. She exploded, screaming at me, throwing her pillows across the room, crying uncontrollably. She told me life was unfair, that I had everything, while she was left alone to rot. That everything wrong in her life was because she was a bad person. She hurt her boyfriend, drove him away. She's ruined our family. She slept with Jake and didn't feel guilty at the time. I initially thought I'd misheard her, but then she said it again. It was like she'd poured a bucket of ice water over me. I silently left, shaking. When I got home, Jake was there watching TV. It came out of my mouth the second I saw him, and I could see in his eyes. It was true. He broke down and told me it happened 3 years ago. Sarah had had another blazing row with her boyfriend and decided to drive around to Jake's looking for me. I was at our parents' at the time, so Jake attempted to pacify Sarah. He comforted her while she sobbed in his arms, and one thing led to another, and they had sex. I packed an overnight bag while he followed me from room to room, sobbing, telling me it was the worst mistake of his life, that he still has no idea how it happened. They felt unbelievably guilty the second it was over, that it feels like it wasn't even real. I left him in the doorway, begging me not to leave. I've checked into a hotel and have switched off my phone. I don't know what to do, who to tell, where to begin. I feel sick, like this is a bad dream. My heart feels like it's been ripped into a million pieces. For all Sarah's faults, I love her more than anything. They were the 2 people who meant more to me than anyone else in the world. How the F do I move on from this? I feel like I'm in a bubble. I don't know what's going on in the outside world. All I do is cry and sleep in this room. Someone please help me make sense of all this. Too long didn't read. My volatile sister recently went through a breakup after a 16-year-long relationship with the love of her life. She's severely depressed and almost catatonic. I went to visit her one day, only for her to explode and tell me she slept with my fiance 3 years ago. He admitted it was true, and I haven't spoken to a soul since. I've locked myself into a hotel room with no plans of ever coming out. My heart shattered into a million pieces, and I don't know what to do. Update. It's only been a day or two since I made my post, but it felt like I'd been in that hotel room for weeks, crying in the dark, buried under the covers. At some point this morning, I decided to draw open the curtains and let the sunlight in. I went and sat on the balcony and switched my phone on for the first time. It started ringing within 30 seconds. It was my mother, who burst into tears as soon as I answered. My parents had obviously been desperately worried. This is the longest I've ever gone without any contact. They'd even contemplated calling the police if they hadn't heard from me by this evening. My mum told me that as I was walking out of Sarah's room, down the stairs, and out the front door, Sarah was screaming and wailing that she was sorry. Funnily enough, I didn't hear this. I don't know how. I think I was just in such a state of shock that I couldn't process anything around me. Honestly, I can't even remember the drive home. After I shut the door behind me, my mum, who was the only other person at home, rushed into Sarah's room to find her trashing her room and attempting to slash her wrist with a blunt lino cutter, of all instruments. Sarah used to do a lot of art. Obviously, this barely caused a scratch, but it jump-started my mum into action. She drove Sarah to the hospital, where she underwent some sort of assessment and was kept overnight. She has, incredibly, agreed to undergo treatment for whatever's wrong with her. My mum was surprised she was so compliant on the drive down, willingly entering the car and saying nothing except to ask where I was. Sarah seems resigned and completely deflated. My mum spoke to me at length, for the first time in my life, about the hardships I'd undergone during Sarah's childhood. I won't go into detail, but I'm still in shock about some of the things I heard. Sarah is not devoid of responsibility. She has long surpassed the age where she can blame her childhood for her behaviour. But my mum admitted, through tears, that not sending her to therapy at an early age was the biggest regret of her life. I asked my mum if she knew why I'd left. She admitted that she'd known since Sarah's ex left 2 months ago. At this point, I had to struggle to not hang up and suddenly felt myself going back into that pit. But she begged me to listen. After her ex left, Sarah told my mum exactly what happened. It wasn't the reason for her ex's departure, although he did know about it. Rather, he had had enough of being Sarah's carer. Years of begging her to seek help had fallen on deaf ears one too many times. When Sarah told my mum, she told Sarah that I have to know immediately. But Sarah refused to tell me. I still don't know why she changed her mind in that moment. My dad doesn't know and thinks I left because I've also finally had enough of Sarah's behaviour. Now, here's where the home truth came out. I asked my mum if she knew the details. She was reluctant to tell me anything, claiming that it had happened and that was all I needed to know. But I told her I wouldn't step foot in the house until I knew everything. She then proceeded to tell me that a few months before they slept together, Sarah and Jake had kissed at my dad's 60th birthday party. It was a large family gathering with a lot of alcohol involved. I remember Jake getting very drunk with my cousins. Sarah had had a crying tantrum prior to arriving, as her and her ex had had an argument and he'd refused to come. She'd called me sobbing before she'd arrived. At some point during the night, Jake asked her if she was okay and hugged her. And once again, one thing led to another, and they'd shared a kiss in the kitchen. Sarah told my mum they were both immediately remorseful and vowed to never speak of it again. But Sarah deliberately sought him out the night they slept together, knowing he was unlikely to turn her down. She openly admitted she did it to get back at her ex, who had cheated on her during one of their many infamous breaks. I don't think I even entered her thoughts. At this point, I'd heard enough. We'd spoken on the phone for over 4 hours, and I felt mentally drained and physically sick. Any hope I had of salvaging my relationship with Jake has completely gone. I feel like the last 3 years have been tainted by their betrayal, and the many years before that, I can't help but wonder, did he like Sarah this whole time? Part of me doesn't even want to know. It's worth noting, he has made absolutely no attempt to contact me, other than a single text saying, "I'm sorry, take as long as you need," as if it's inevitable that I'll come back to him. Things are still up in the air. I don't feel ready to check out of the hotel, as I don't know where I'm going next. My relationship with my mum has been rocked by these revelations. I don't know what's going to become of Sarah, and I have no idea what I'm going to do about me and Jake's flat, where I'm going to live. I don't even know if I have a job anymore. I just haven't showed up to work. But I know the truth, and the smallest part of me is grateful for that. I guess there's nothing else to do for now, except for wait and see how things unfold. For anyone who has ever experienced symptoms like Sarah's, or has been around someone who is so visibly troubled, I beg you to seek help before it's too late. Final update. So, after my conversation with my mum, I went back to square one. I switched off my phone again and retreated back into my hotel for a further 5 days. Eventually, I decided enough was enough and I decided to call work. My boss wasn't angry or even surprised. My mum had called him after our conversation and told him there'd been a family emergency and that I'd be unavailable for the foreseeable future. He told me to take until the end of the week, but if I required more time off, I would have to come to a meeting. So my job is safe and I'm back at work trying to get on with things. After this, I went back to my parents. Sarah was also home, but holed up in her bedroom. I went in to see her. She was up painting. As a number of you guessed, it's likely she has BPD, although my parents are waiting on a second opinion. She's going to counselling weekly and seems slightly better. She broke down in tears when she saw me, and we had a long talk where she spoke to me in depth about how truly consumed she was by her and her ex's toxic relationship. She understands it's for the best it's over, but she describes the pain as unrelenting. It hurt when he was with me, and it hurts now he's gone. Wow, I've just got to say, this sister is so self-involved. The second OP comes back, after having a breakdown over her sister sleeping with her fiancé, she bursts into tears and cries to OP, not about how sorry she is, but about her own issues with her ex. Just wow. I know a lot of you will feel disappointment that I didn't cut her or my mum out of my life for good. I still feel resentment in the pit of my stomach whenever I think about it, but truly, I blame Jake more than anyone. Jake was with me long enough to see some of Sarah's behaviour. She's not well, and he still chose to do what he did. It's a slow process, but she's my sister, and I can't cut them out of my life forever. It will never be the same again, but maybe that's a good thing. My dad, who now knows, drove to my apartment and gathered some clothes and an overnight bag. Jake wasn't home, and my parents haven't heard from him since I left. I have no idea where he is, and neither he nor his family have made any attempt to contact me since this came out. His social media profiles have disappeared, and I haven't tried contacting him, his family, or his friends. I began the slow process of telling my friends last week. I didn't explain what happened, I just told them that Jake wasn't the person I thought he was. They all assume he cheated, but there's no reason for them to know who he cheated with. I've switched back and forth between staying with my parents and sleeping at my apartment, sleeping on the couch, as I can't bear to sleep in our old bed. I'm looking at selling the place, however, this means contacting Jake as the apartment is jointly owned. I'll cross that bridge when I feel a bit stronger. I still spend most days with a hole in my heart. It hurts more than anything I've felt in my life, but it's getting better. I know I've got a long way to go, but I'm confident I'll get there. Too long didn't read. Jake has disappeared without a trace. Sarah's in treatment. My heart still hurts, but I'm finally starting to get better. Man, OP is far more forgiving than me. I know there's mental health issues and childhood trauma, but I just don't think sleeping with your sister's fiancé is a symptom of that. I don't know, am I wrong? If you like this video, please let me know and subscribe for more juicy tea.